Her secrets: old feather fans, tasseled dance cards, powdered with musk, a gourd of amber beads in her locked drawer, a bird cage hung in the sunny window of her house when she was a girl. She heard old Royce sing in the pantomime of Turco the Terrible, and laughed with others when he sang, "I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility." Phantasmal mirth, folded away, musk perfumed, and no more turn aside and brood. Folded away in the memory of nature with her toys. Memories beset his brooding brain. Her glass of water from the kitchen tap when she had approached the sacrament. A cored apple, filled with brown sugar, roasting for her at the hob on a dark autumn evening. Her shapely fingernails reddened by the blood of squashed lice from the children's shirts. In a dream, silently, she had come to him, her wasted body within its loose grave clothes, giving off an odor of wax and rosewood. Her breath bent over him with mute secret words, a faint odor of wetted ashes. Her glazing eyes, staring out of death, to shake and bend my soul. On me alone, the ghost candle to light her agony, ghostly light on the tortured face. Her hoarse, loud breath rattling in horror, while all prayed on their knees. Her eyes on me to strike me down. Liliata utilantium te confessorum turma circumdet, jubilantium te virginum chorus excipiat. Ghoul, chewer of corpses. No, mother, let me be and let me live. Kinch, ahoy! Buck Mulligan's voice sang from within the tower. It came nearer up the staircase, calling again. Stephen, still trembling at his soul's cry, heard warm running sunlight, and in the air behind him friendly words. Daedalus, come down, like a good mosey. Breakfast is ready. Haynes is apologizing for waking us last night. It's all right. I'm coming, Stephen said, turning. Do, for Jesus' sake, Buck Mulligan said, for my sake and for all our sakes. His head disappeared and reappeared. I told him your symbol of Irish art. He says it's very clever. Touch him for a quid, will you? A guinea, I mean. I get paid this morning, Stephen said. The school kip, Buck Mulligan said. How much? 4 quid? Lend us one. If you want it, Steve said. 4 shining sovereigns, Buck Mulligan cried with delight. We'll have a glorious drunk to astonish the druidy druids. 4 omnipotent sovereigns. He flung up his hands, and tramped down the stone stairs, singing out of tune with a Cockney accent. Oh, won't we have a merry time, drinking whiskey, beer, and wine, on Coronation Day. Oh, won't we have a merry time on Coronation Day. Warm sunshine, merrying over the sea. The nickel shaving bowl shone, forgotten, on the parapet. Why should I bring it down, or leave it there all day, forgotten friendship? He went over to it, held it in his hands a while, feeling its coolness, smelling the clammy slaver of the lather in which the brush was stuck. So I carried the boat of incense then at Clongoes. I am another now, and yet the same. A servant, too. A server of a servant. In the gloomy, domed living room of the tower, Buck Mulligan's gowned form moved briskly about the hearth to and fro, hiding and revealing its yellow glow. 2 shafts of soft daylight fell across the flagged floor, from the high barbicans, and at the meeting of their rays a cloud of coal smoke and fumes of fried grease floated, turning. "We'll be choked," Buck Mulligan said. "Haynes, open that door, will you?" Stephen laid the shaving bowl on the locker. A tall figure rose from the hammock where it had been sitting, went to the doorway, and pulled open the inner doors. "Have you the key?" a voice asked. "Daedalus has it," Buck Mulligan said. "Janie Mac, I'm choked." He howled without looking up from the fire. "Kinch!" "It's in the lock," Stephen said, coming forward. The key scraped round harshly twice, and, when the heavy door had been set ajar, welcome light and bright air entered. Haynes stood at the doorway, looking out. Stephen hailed his upended valise to the table and sat down to wait. Buck Mulligan tossed the fry onto the dish beside him. Then he carried the dish and a large teapot over to the table, set them down heavily, and sighed with relief. "I'm melting," he said as the candle remarked when, "but hush. Not a word more on that subject." "Kinch, wake up. Bread, butter, honey. Haynes, come in. The grub is ready. Bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts. Where's the sugar? Oh, Jay, there's no milk." Stephen fetched the loaf and the pot of honey and the butter cooler from the locker. Buck Mulligan sat down in a sudden pet. "What sort of a kip is this?" he said. "I told her to come after 8. "We can drink it black," Stephen said. "There's a lemon in the locker." "Oh, damn you and your Paris fads," Buck Mulligan said. "I want Sandy Cove milk." Haynes came in from the doorway and said quietly, "That woman is coming up with the milk." "The blessings of God on you," Buck Mulligan cried, jumping up from his chair. "Sit down. Pour out the tea here. There. The sugar is in the bag. Here, I can't go fumbling at the damned eggs." He hacked through the fry on the dish and slapped it out on 3 plates, saying, "In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti." Haynes sat down to pour out the tea. "I'm giving you 2 lumps each," he said. "But I say, Mulligan, you do make strong tea, don't you?" Can't get the camera right. Jeez. What a pain in the ass. Buck Mulligan, hewing thick slices from the loaf, said in an old woman's wheedling voice, "When I make tea, I makes tea, as old Mother Grogan said. And when I makes water, I makes water. By Jove, it is tea," Haynes said. Buck Mulligan went on hewing and wheedling. "So I do, Mrs. Cahill," says she. "Begob, ma'am," says Mrs. Cahill. "God send you don't make them in the one pot." He lunged towards his messmates, in turn a thick slice of bread, impaled on his knife. "That's folk," he said very earnestly, "for your book, Haynes. 5 lines of text and 10 pages of notes about the folk and the fish gods of Dundrum, printed by the Weird Sisters in the year of the big wind." He turned to Stephen and asked in a fine puzzled voice, lifting his brows, "Can you recall, brother, is Mother Grogan's tea and water pot spoken of in the Mabinogion, or is it in the Upanishads?" "I doubt it," said Stephen gravely. "Do you now?" Buck Mulligan said in the same tone. "Your reasons, pray?" "I fancy," Stephen said as he ate, "it did not exist in or out of the Mabinogion. Mother Grogan was, one imagines, a kinswoman of Mary Ann. Buck Mulligan's face smiled with delight. "Charming," he said in a finical, sweet voice, showing his white teeth and blinking his eyes pleasantly. "Do you think she was?" "Quite charming." Then, suddenly overclouding all his features, he growled in a hoarse and rasping voice as he hewed again vigorously at the loaf. "For old Marianne, she doesn't care a damn, but," hissing up her petticoats. The doorway was darkened by an entering form. "The milk, sir." "Come in, ma'am," Mulligan said. "Kinch, get the jug." An old woman came forward and stood by Stephen's elbow. "That's a lovely morning, sir," she said. "Glory be to God." "To whom?" Mulligan said, glancing at her. "Ah, to be sure." Stephen reached back and took the milk jug from the locker. "The islanders," Mulligan said to Haines casually, "speak frequently of the collector of prepuces." "How much, sir?" asked the old woman. "A quart," Stephen said. He watched her pour into the measure, and thence into the jug, rich white milk. Not hers. Old, shrunken paps. She poured again a measureful and a tilly. Old and secret, she had entered from a morning world, maybe a messenger. She praised the goodness of the milk, pouring it out, crouching by a patient cow at daybreak in the lush field, a witch on her toadstool, her wrinkled fingers quick at the squirting dugs. They lowed about her whom they knew do silky cattle. Silk of the kine and poor old woman. Names given her in old times. A wandering crone, lowly form of an immortal serving her conqueror and her gay betrayer, their common Cuckooian, a messenger from the secret morning, to serve or to upbraid, whether he could not tell, but scorned to beg her favor. "It is indeed, ma'am," Buck Mulligan said, pouring milk into their cups. "Taste it, sir," she said. He drank at her bidding. "If we could only live on good food like that," he said to her somewhat loudly, "we wouldn't have the country full of rotten teeth and rotten guts. Living in a bog swamp, eating cheap food, and the streets paved with dust, horse dung, and consumptive spits." "Are you a medical student, sir?" the old woman asked. "I am, ma'am," Buck Mulligan answered. No. Stephen listened in scornful silence. She bows her old head to a voice that speaks to her loudly, her bone setter, her medicine man. Me she slights. To the voice that will shrive, and oil for the grave, all there is of her but her woman's unclean loins, of man's flesh, made not in God's likeness the serpent's prey. And to the loud voice that now bids her be silent with wondering, unsteady eyes. "Do you understand what he says?" Stephen asked her. "Is it French you are talking, sir?" the old woman said to Haines. Haines spoke to her, again, a longer speech, confidently. "Irish," Buck Mulligan said. "Is there Gaelic on you?" "I thought it was Irish," she said, by the sound of it. "Are you from the West, sir?" "I am an Englishman," Haines answered. "He's English," Buck Mulligan said, "and he thinks we ought to speak Irish in Ireland." "Sure we ought to," the old woman said, "and I'm ashamed I don't speak the language myself. I'm told it's a grand language by them that knows." "Grand is no name for it," said Buck Mulligan. "Wonderful entirely. Fill us out some more tea, Kinch. Would you like a cup, ma'am?" "No, thank you, sir," the old woman said, slipping the ring of the milk can on her forearm and about to go. Haines said to her, "Have you your bill? We had better pay her, Mulligan, hadn't we?" Stephen filled again the 3 cups. "Bill, sir?" she said, halting. "Well, it's 7 mornings a pint at 2 pence is 7 twos is a shilling, and 2 pence over in these 3 mornings a quart at 4 pence is 3 quarts is a shilling, and 1 and 2 is 2 and 2, sir." Buck Mulligan sighed, and having filled his mouth with a crust thickly buttered on both sides, stretched forth his legs and began to search his trouser pockets. "Pay up and look pleasant," Haines said to him, smiling. Stephen filled the third cup, a spoonful of tea, coloring faintly the thick, rich milk. Buck Mulligan brought up a florin, twisted it round in his fingers, and cried, "A miracle!" He passed it along the table towards the old woman, saying, "Ask nothing more of me, sweet. All I can give you I give." Stephen laid the coin in her uneager hands. "We'll owe 2 pence," he said. "Time enough, sir," she said, taking the coin. "Time enough. Good morning, sir." She curtsied and went out, followed by Buck Mulligan's tender chant. "Heart of my heart, were it more, more would be laid at your feet." He turned to Stephen and said, "Seriously, Daedalus, I'm stony. Hurry out to your school kit and bring us back some money. Today the bards must drink and junket. Ireland expects that every man this day will do his duty." "That reminds me," Haines said, rising, "that I have to visit your National Library today." "Our swim first," Buck Mulligan said. He turned to Stephen and asked blandly, "Is this the day for your monthly wash, Kinch?" Then he said to Haines, "The unclean bard makes a point of washing once a month." "All Ireland is washed by the Gulf Stream," Stephen said as he let honey trickle over a slice of the loaf. Haines, from the corner where he was knotting easily a scarf about the loose collar of his tennis shirt, spoke. "I intend to make a collection of your sayings if you will let me. Speaking to me, they wash and tub and scrub. Agan by the Vinwit, conscience, yet here's the spot. That one about the cracked looking-glass of a servant being the symbol of Irish art is deuced good." Buck Mulligan kicked Stephen's foot under the table and said with warmth of tone, "Wait till you hear him on Hamlet, Haines." "Well, I mean it," Haines said, still speaking to Stephen. "I was just thinking of it when that poor old creature came in." "Would I make money by it?" Stephen asked. Haines laughed, and, as he took his soft gray hat from the holdfast of the hammock, said, "I don't know, I'm sure." He strolled out to the doorway. Buck Mulligan bent across to Stephen and said with coarse vigor, "You put your hoof in it now. What did you say that for?" "Well," Stephen said, "the problem is to get money. From whom? From the milkwoman or from him? It's a toss-up, I think." "I blow him out about you," Buck Mulligan said, "and then you come along with your lousy leer and your gloomy Jesuit jibes." "I see little hope," Stephen said, "from her or from him." Buck Mulligan sighed tragically and laid his hand on Stephen's arm. "From me, Kinch," he said. In a suddenly changed tone he added, "To tell you the God's truth, I think you're right. Damn all else they are good for. Why don't you play them as I do? To hell with them all. Let us get out of the kip." He stood up, gravely ungirdled, and disrobed himself of his gown, saying resignedly, "Mulligan is stripped of his garments." He emptied his pockets onto the table. "There's your snot rag," he said.